Hello everyone, I'm Khaled and I'll be your instructor for this Python course provided by Learning while Practicing. In this video, we'll be talking about conditional statements in Python. So let's get started. Actually, before we start looking into conditional statements, we need to look into the comparison operators in Python. So let's assume that we have two variables. Let's say that we have x, which is equal to 10, and y, which is equal to 20. And then we need to check whether x is greater than y, or y is greater than x, or are they equal, and so on. In order to do this, we have a couple of operators in Python. So the first one is the equal operator, which compares for equality between two variables. So if we say that x equal y, and then we print that out, and then we run that code, we can see here that the result is false. So this is like a comparison operator. It has two sides, the left side and the right side, and it compares the values of these two sides for equality. If they are equal, it will return true, and if they're not equal, it will return false. And since here we have x equal to 10 and y equal to 20, so obviously they're not equal, so the answer here is false. And false here is called the Boolean value. And we can have such variables as integers, floats, and strings. We could also have some Boolean variables. These variables could have a value of either true or false, as we might have seen. And these become very handy in situations where we're using flags and while we're using conditional statements like if statements. So let's have a look at that kind of Boolean variable. So let's say that z is equal to x not equal y. So this is also another comparison operator. So it compares for inequality. So it would return true if they are not equal. And here we're assigning a value or a variable called z. So the value of this value z would be either true or false based on the evaluation of this comparison. So let's take a look at the type of z in order to make sure that it is a Boolean variable. And let's run that code. Well, we didn't print it, so we need to print that to see some output. And we can find that the type here is Boolean, which is bool, as we mentioned before. This is a Boolean variable, so we can actually assign Boolean variables like this. Let's try another one. So let's say we have a variable, let's say it's m, and this m is equal to x less than y. So if x is less than y, this m would be true, otherwise it would be false. So let's print m and run. We can find here that the value is true here because here we actually have x is less than y. We have also greater than or equal. Let's say this greater than or equal. So it checks if x here is greater than or equal to y. Let's see what would be the result here. It is false because, as we know, x is less than y. Of course, we have less than or equal. If we print that, we can find that the value here is true because actually x is less than y. Okay, sounds good. So we know a bit about the comparison operators here in Python. Let's use this in a useful statement or useful if statement. So how do you write if statements in Python? So let's look at the simple if statement. So if we have some condition like we write f, let's say we want to print some message if if x is equal to y. So we say if x equal y. So we need to make sure we know that this operator is a double equal operator. It's not assignment, but this double equal means comparison. So we're checking for equality here. And then we have this column. We write this column and then we hit enter. After we hit enter, we find that the cursor here is a bit indented. from the original place where write we wrote the F. And this indentation indicates blocks in Python. So if you're familiar with any other like programming language like C or C++, Java, you'll find that we would use curly braces like this in order to indicate a block. But here this is not the case. In Python we don't have these curly braces. We just use this indentation in order to specify that this code belongs or would be executed when this condition is satisfied. So here if x is equal to y, let's print x is equal to y. And then let's run that. We can see that we don't have x is equal to y because here when this condition is being evaluated, x here is 10 and y is 20, so they're not equal. So let's make them equal for the sake of this example and then run again. We can find that we have printed out that x is equal to y. Okay, so this is a simple if statement. We could also have some other branch, which is called the else branch. So this other branch gets executed if this condition is not satisfied. So if x is not equal to y, the code inside this branch would be executed. So let's print another message, which is x is not equal to y, and see what happens. As we can see, we still are getting the same message, which is x is equal to y, because here we have x is 10 and y is 10. If we change them, get y back to 20, run again. So message has changed. Now x is not equal to y. So this is also a simple if-else statement. Let's look at a little bit more complex example. So let's assume that we're having some student grades. So these grades or scores are, we have some numeric grade, and this grade is some value between 10 and 100. And we need to convert these grades into their like respective letter grades. So let's say that the numeric grade is great, and let's say that it is 100 initially. And then we have this letter grade that we need to calculate. And that should be just a character. And let's say it's initially A. Assume that the student has grade of A. We need to go over different conditions in order to find out what would be the letter grade corresponding to to this student grade. So we do an if condition for the grade. So we say that if the grade is less than 60, so this is like the fail grade. So the letter grade here would be equal to F. We need to add another condition, but not only one condition. We need to consider the case in which the grade is greater than 60 but less than 69, or greater than or equal to 70 but less than 79, and so on. So we have multiple conditions that we need to go over in order to determine the letter grade. So in this case, using a construct called else-if or elif in Python, that would be very useful. So we'll have multiple if statements. So the first if, and then if this condition is not satisfied, it goes to the following condition, the following elif condition, and so on until it finds the condition that is satisfied. So if this condition is not, so once it finds a condition that is being satisfied, it just exits, doesn't even execute the rest of the elif, and then eventually returns whatever we are trying to return here. So, okay, so let's start doing this. So here we have considered a case where the grade is less than 60. So the letter grade here would be F. If the grade is greater than or equal to 60, but it's less than 70. So in that case, the letter grade should be B. Okay, so and here is a like a logical operator that makes sure that both of these conditions are satisfied, not only one of them. So we need the grade is greater or equal to 60 and the grade is also less than 70. So it makes sure that both of these conditions are satisfied. Okay, let's move on. So as you might notice, whenever I finish the block inside the LF, I go back to the original indentation. So I just hit backspace in order to go back to the original indentation because this is how it should be written. Again, so else if the grade is greater than or equal to 70, but the grade is less than 80, we can have the letter grade equals C, if grade greater than or equal to 80, and grade less than 90, the letter grade B, B, and then finally else, this is the final condition. None of these happens, then of course the letter grade B, A. And then we can just print the letter grade out there to see our code actually works. So let's run this. Okay, so here now the grade is 100 out of 100. So of course this is an A, and we go here over the conditions. The first one is not satisfied, the second one is not satisfied, and so on. So it just goes into this else, and the letter grade would be A. Okay, let's change this grade. Let's say this grade is like 65 and see what happens. Okay, so 65 goes over this one. This is not satisfied. Goes over this condition. This condition is satisfied because 65 is greater than or equal to 60, but it's less than 70. So the letter grade here is D, and it skips the rest of these conditions and just goes to the print because it has found a condition that has been satisfied. Okay, let's try one more. Let's say 80. So we try. Okay, the grade here is B, which is correct because here this is not satisfied, this is not satisfied, and this is not satisfied, and eventually finds this condition to be satisfied, and then the letter grade would be assigned as B. So that was like a brief overview of the if conditional statements and different types of if else, and if else if. So hopefully you found this useful, and see you in the next video.